Pirates of the Caribbean, one of Disney's most successful live-action franchises, which spanned 5 movies over the course of 14 years, to mild critical success. The series follows the exploits of Jack Sparrow, who starts as an underdog pirate trying to win his ship back, to fighting ghosts over Poseidon's trident, and watch 2 former friends make out as he sails into the sunset. Yeah, these movies got progressively more ridiculous as time went on, but that did not stop these movies from making big bucks. One of the products of Pirates' success is, of course, the toys and merchandise associated. LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean sets were released mainly around the time of the franchise's 4th installment on Stranger Tides, and with the LEGO sets came the eventual LEGO game, and also the subject of this next project. Yes, I learned my lesson from the last time, okay? I'm covering a game people have actually asked for. And last time I did that, it was like 2019.
Oh, thank God. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is one of the ones I wanted, actually.
Okay, so I did spin a wheel, and I probably would have gone with any other game, so maybe I didn't learn my lesson. But what's important is that the wheel chose this one. And this game is one I've been wanting to rank for a long time. I feel like this game came out at a ripe time in LEGO Games history. TT Games already had a few LEGO games under their belt at this point, so the level design is more refined. But it was before voice acting was made commonplace, which was a turnoff for a lot of people when it came to LEGO games. Also, the character roster is not obnoxiously ginormous with only 79 characters, which is great for me. But are there any special rules for the ranking? Well, there's not much rule-wise, except custom characters will not be included as usual. Also, I'm ranking them first and foremost based on how useful they are, if you're a completionist, like I am. But this game contains a lot of characters with identical ability sets, unlike LEGO Avengers, where most characters are shockingly unique. In the case of identical ability sets, I'll rank based on their role in the movie they're from, how much I like them, or their design. It's really just balls to the wall at that point. Also, since this series will be shorter, I'm going to experiment with, a little bit of an intro for each individual part, discussing a different aspect of the game or movies. So, the rules are set, the blades are sharpened, and the rum is gone.
Why is rum gone?
So let's get into this new ranking of every character in LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean, the video game. At the dirt bottom of the list, we have the Cook. Cook of what, you asked? Oh, just the Queen Anne's Revenge. Just the most intimidating ship on the 7 seas, even though we never heard a thing about it until the 4th movie. And yes, I know Blackbeard and his ship were real things that happened, but obviously they botched his cause of death in this movie. Hell, I don't even think the death they made up for him on Stranger Tides is as cool as the actual battle where Blackbeard died. But enough about the captain. Let's talk about the guy that cooks his meals. Cook was actually a character you played briefly in the Queen Anne's Revenge level. That level was all about chain reactions. You get an egg so the cook can cook it so that you can give it to another guy, but not before waking up a strong man with music so he can rip open the cage to give the guy in the cage the egg so that he can fix something. If that sounded like chore upon chore to you, it was. That's what the whole level was. Half of it, anyway. And aside from him frying an egg, he does absolutely nothing. The egg was a one-time thing, okay? It's not an actual ability ever needed elsewhere. And to boot, you can just skip right over all this chore doing in free play because you can just switch in a character with the Forge ability immediately. Oh, and if you don't know what I mean by Forge, just continue watching the series, part 3 to be exact. It took me too long to realize who this guy was. At first I thought he was the Grail Knight from LEGO Indiana Jones and that there was some kind of mistake. No, this is the old dude that the Spanish found at the beginning of On Stranger Tides. The guy with the book about the Fountain of Youth. It's curious they decided to put this guy in the game and opted out of some more important characters, but that's a topic for another time. It's also kind of strange how unique this guy is. Well, first off, this guy has no abilities, just like the cook. But he has a fish as a weapon, which I guess is a step up from a frying pan. For my entertainment purposes, of course. I know realistically the cook will literally cook that fish. But aside from weapon choice, another thing that tickles my fancy when it comes to the Ancient Sailor is he does like this cartwheel thing in the air for a double jump. Again, this does jack nothing. But why is he doing air tricks as a 200-something-year-old? Oh, my boy Cotton, it's such a shame that you're so far down on the list, but if there's anything this game got right, it's that this guy is dead weight. I get that he was there in the movie for the comedy of it all, the fact that Cotton was among the best Jack Sparrow could find on Tortuga, but come on, can we really trust him as a deckhand? We never see him after At World's End, so it's anyone's guess where he ended up. But Cotton himself is not necessarily the draw to his character, it's the parrot that speaks for him, since his tongue is gone. Yeah, remember that? I don't believe the parrot has a name.
Mr. Cotton's parrot. Same question.
But it's the source of comedic relief in the first 3 movies. Unfortunately, though, as I've hinted, Cotton has no abilities. He has a parrot, though, and I sometimes see him doing a jig in the hub world, but that's really it for Cotton in this game. He's the focus of one of the events in the Tortuga level, where you have to chase around the parrot until it returns to Cotton so he can be recruited, but I don't believe we ever play this guy again, and for good reason. He sucks. Scrum is an interesting character to me because this guy became a mainstay after the original trilogy of movies, which I believe is the only character to do this. I mean, all the characters that were returning in On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales were already in the original trilogy. You got Gibbs, Barbossa, even Marty, and of course Jack Sparrow, but Scrum was introduced in On Stranger Tides as one of Blackbeard's deckhands and returned for Dead Men Tell No Tales as one of Jack's cronies. In this game, though, he was only playable in one level, and his ability is next to worthless. Like Cook, he was a tool used in the Queen Anne's Revenge level to gain access to a better character. To get the guy who wants the egg in the cage, first you must wake up another character that can bust him out with music, and that's where Scrum comes in. Scrum wields a guitar that, when holding down the action button, generates a tune. This satisfies the guy that is able to bust open the egg enjoyer's cage, but there's another thing to note with Scrum's guitar, in that it stops all enemies in their tracks and has them do a jig. This is a neat concept, but nothing is really achieved from doing this. As soon as you stop, the enemies resume their attack, so all you really do is waste time, as you can still would need to defeat them. In any case, this guitar is at least something, which is more than what can be said for the other 3 characters we've covered thus far. Rejoice, we have our first character that actually has an ability that serves a purpose. To be fair, the ability this guy has is literally the worst possible version of this ability, and I would never use this guy for said ability, but he still has it nonetheless. This is the Hungry Cannibal, which is a character name I doubt they'd ever use now. If this game came out today, I guess they would name this guy the Pelagostos Tribesman or something, not Hungry Cannibal. That's a pretty malicious name for a Lego game, but anywho, the Hungry Cannibal wields a spear, which leads to his only ability, the ranged ability. Throughout the game, there are targets, which are things we've seen in several Lego games on this channel, but those with the ranged ability can target these bullseyes to make things happen. Alternatively, you can aim at enemies and shoot them from afar. Very rarely will you be able to do that, since enemies primarily just run up to you to fight, aside from a few exceptions. But the bullseyes are the primary use for ranged weapons. The only problem with the Hungry Cannibal is that he has a spear, which is way slower and clunkier than most other means of ranged weaponry. It takes forever to wind up that spear and launch it, almost to the point where there's just no point. But on a technical level, the Hungry Cannibal does have an ability that could be used in levels to find collectibles and such, but literally any other character with the ranged ability is preferred. Captain Bellamy did not even get the consideration of being in the main story, at all, not even in the cutscene. This is the captain of the ship that Elizabeth Swann snuck onto in Dead Man's Chest. The ship's crew argues over the dress that was found and that the ship might be haunted, you know, that one. Honestly, what a blunder on Elizabeth's part for leaving the dress there. I get that maybe she didn't have time to dispose of the dress, but why couldn't she just crumple it up and toss it off the back of the ship when no one was looking? I digress. My point is that Captain Bellamy is the captain of that ship with the stupid crew, not to be confused with the guy from One Piece or, the actual Captain Bellamy that existed in real life. Out of the 3 Bellamys, I don't really know anything about any of them. I don't watch One Piece, and I didn't know there was an actual Bellamy, and I just found out about both of them when researching. But I do know that the Pirates of the Caribbean Bellamy died gruesomely to the Kraken, which is a major L on his part. It's a shock that he even made it onto the roster, considering he got zero representation in the game itself. His one ability, though, is the sword ability, which will come to be a common one since this is a Pirates-related game. Sword characters can not only engage in sword fighting combat, which is weirdly specific, but they can also pull sword levers, which are extremely common in this game, probably the most common ability. So if a character doesn't have a sword, it might just set them back. Lieutenant Groves is the de facto beta of the British Royal Navy in these movies. He went from being Norrington's right-hand man to the right-hand man of Privateer Barbossa, which that was a strange phase on Barbossa's part. But Groves went ahead and died like a chump in the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie by claiming the Fountain of Youth as British land and then getting shot immediately by the Spaniard. Poor guy, he's just trying to climb the ladder for years just to die a British simp. Not really good look by any means. In this game, though, he looks like some generic British soldier that may or may not carry some status, and honestly, that is exactly what Lieutenant Groves was. And who knows, he was shot in the stomach. Who says he didn't survive? Maybe he can come back and become the general he probably wanted to be. But with the current state of the franchise, we shouldn't get our hopes up. Similar to Captain Bellamy, Lieutenant Groves only has the sword ability, but the sword ability is a good ability to have, even though it's very common. So if you want to get ranked higher, you'd have to bring something else to the table, aside from one measly sword. Remember Norrington? I feel like I've watched the original 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies several times, yet I always forget that this guy exists, even though he plays a shockingly large role in those movies. In the first one, he's the guy simping over Elizabeth, and then gets to watch her make out with Will Turner, poor guy. In the second movie, the version this variant is from, which I'll get to, but he's found in Tortuga being a class act, and then he becomes the reason why Davy Jones becomes the short guy's slave, essentially. At least Norrington comes to his senses in At World's End, which is even one of the levels in the campaigns for this game, aptly named Norrington's Choice. But this is the Disgraced variant, who is playable in the Isla Cruces level. Wait, how do you pronounce that, first of all? Cruces. Okay, I was right. Okay. One of my personal favorite levels and moments in the entire franchise as a whole. You play as disgraced Norrington and Will Turner in a fight against Jack Sparrow. Having to fight against the true main character of the franchise is such a cool concept for a level, and it made sense given the scenario it was representing from the film. Anyway, disgraced Norrington just has the sword ability to his name, and honestly, I'm surprised he even has that, considering he's like, disgraced and all. Okay, I apologize in advance for probably completely butchering this guy's name. It's pronounced Sri Samhaji Andria. He was one of the members of the Brethren Court who had their own entire level in this game, which is kind of crazy. I mean, At World's End is almost 3 hours in length, which was unheard of at that time for Hollywood movies. This was before Avatar and obviously Avengers Endgame, both of which are known for their long runtime. But LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean designated only 5 levels per movie. So for a movie that is so long in runtime, those 5 level slots are kind of precious, to say the least. So I'm surprised the Brethren Court scenes got representation. I get why the Brethren Court was so important, because they needed all the pirates on the 7 seas to work together to be able to defeat the forces of the British Navy and Davy Jones, but that point wasn't exactly driven home in a game with no voice acting. Anyway, as I've said, Andria here is one of the pirate lords on the Brethren Court. In the Brethren Court level, you go around and help each pirate lord with a small task to get them to use their sword to open a door. Andria's special task is, wait for it, a dance off. Well, one of those, tile puzzles that we've seen in several LEGO games at this point. Just jump on the ones they tell you to. Also, Andria's only ability is sword, and spoilers, the same is going to be for all but one of the Brethren Court, so enjoy that coming up. Hey, so this is a little thing I'm going to do, which isn't going to be in the supercut because it wouldn't make sense, but I'm tallying the character's origin movie for each individual part, as in which movie the specific character is from. For example, Sri Samhaji Andria showed up in At World's End, so At World's End gets a tally. And I did that for all 9 characters presented in this part. The movie with the most tallies gets the point for quote-unquote winning. So let's look at this part's tallies. Okay, so Dead Man's Chest and On Stranger Tides are tied with 3 characters each. So both movies will get a point for quote-unquote winning the quote-unquote part. But again, this is a fun thing I'm doing that's exclusive to the individual parts to give something special for them that won't be in the supercut. See you guys later.